Hi, this is Beverly Craig, Mary from Passive House Accelerators with us today, and also David Salamon from Revision. Thanks for tuning in to this special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast that's recorded at PhiusCon 23 in Houston, Texas. And a big thank you to Zola Windows for their support of the series. David, could you introduce yourself and Revision?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you, Beverly, and thank you, Mary. I appreciate being invited to be on the podcast. I'm a huge fan of the Passive House Accelerator and the entire community that it's really helped to create and facilitate. My name is David Salamon. I live in Philadelphia, and I work for a firm called Revision Architecture. We have two studios at Revision. We have a high-performance architecture studio where we design single-family and multifamily residential projects, as well as institutional, educational, and agricultural projects. The thing that ties them all together is sustainability. We also have a sustainability consulting studio where we work with other architects, as well as developers, large clients like universities, and even community groups to help them achieve their sustainability goals. So if they have a project that is seeking LEED certification, Living Building Challenge, WELL sites, JUST, B Corp, we help other firms achieve those goals.
Great. And you've gotten a lot of experience in Passive House over the last few years. Well, a lot of years, right? Tell us about some of the projects you're doing and some of this consulting work. Does it work in other states? I'm asking very selfishly, being from Massachusetts.
Yeah. Ironically, one of the things that we consult on that I just neglected to mention is, of course, Passive House. We do a ton of Passive House consulting. And, you know, we're really excited about all the work that's happening in Massachusetts right now. It's going to radically shift that market. I think that the work that's happening now in Massachusetts, a lot of that was really springboarded from the work we did in Pennsylvania, where the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency adopted Passive House as part of the way they scored projects and allocated funding. And when that happened, that really created a huge market incentive for people to adopt Passive House. And now we're seeing that same thing really get turbocharged in Massachusetts. And, you know, we've been doing Passive House since, 2014-ish, around there. Again, designing our own projects, helping other people to achieve Passive House with their projects. And so over time, we've learned a ton of lessons, sometimes in a hard way. And so we just feel that we have a whole lot to offer teams, especially in places like Massachusetts, where people are starting to do this for the first time. And there's a lot of advice and lessons learned that we can pass on to help those teams really leapfrog, in a sense, those the things that we did that we would now do differently. And help teams get set up as best as possible for success.
Yeah, pain points can be tough to talk about, but it is so valuable for the rest of the community. And I've always really appreciated you coming up to Passive House Mass and showing pictures of things that you wish had been done differently and how to catch things early and giving advice, which is super helpful. Is there if you had one lesson to a new team, what would that be that you would communicate?
So, as an architect, I sort of have the easy part of the job when it comes to achieving Passive House. It's the builders who have the hardest job. And I say, in regards to achieving Passive House, they're the weak link. And it's not because, and I'm not slamming builders. I have so much respect for them. It's just that they have the hardest job, right? So I sit in my office, I've got coffee, I've got climate control, I can draw these details all day. They're out in the field in the rain and the wind and the snow in completely challenging conditions, and they have to try to execute the things that we've drawn. So one of the real early lessons actually that I learned was about collaborating with builders, because our goal is to always make our details affordable, effective, and executable. And they've really changed a lot over time as a result of working directly with builders. And, so the key, to get back to your initial question, the key is to really understand the big picture. And that's got to be from the GC down to the subs, right? Often when mistakes happen in the field, it's because a sub doesn't understand the full picture of what they're doing, right? Sub comes onto a job, they know what, they have their scope. But particularly in a building like a passive house, there might be something like the air barrier, which is so incredibly integral to achieving these goals, that's done by multiple trades, right? So if one of those trades doesn't understand how they fit into that whole picture, that's where you can have a failure point. And so, we have examples of where that's happened. We have examples of how we fixed that, and how we do things a little bit different now, to try to head off those consequences before they happen.
Oh, great. I hope Massachusetts teams take advantage of your knowledge and bring you in when they're new. And even you do plan reviews and things like that.
We do.
Consulting firm?
Yep, we sure do. When we work with a new client, or even an old client, we have a ton of repeat clients. But when we work on, let's say, a new project, we can, depending on where they are in the design process, it's always better to bring us on earlier to a team. However, we've been handed pretty much finished projects and have been told, make this a passive house. And it's not
ideal.
It's not ideal, but we've done that. We've successfully done that. Yeah. But so yes, we will, in whatever state they are, we can take those drawings, we will, redline and annotate them. And then that's just the basis for a conversation to be had, in let's say with the architects, or the engineers, or, whoever is on the team and who we need to talk to at the moment. And so we'll talk about design intent. I think that's one of the real values that we actually offer as consultants, is that we're also architects. And so we can anticipate certain things, and we understand certain things in a different way. So we can talk to you about design intent. We can also talk to you about things like constructability, right? And sequencing, and things that you want to, you don't necessarily have those conversations with builders. Sometimes it gets into a little bit of a means and methods, but we can anticipate those things, and help, again, just help get the project set up for success from a really early stage.
Well, thanks for sharing so many lessons learned over the years, super important. And PhiusCon's been a blast. Is there one thing from PhiusCon that you have found really interesting?
I am always blown away and inspired every time I come here. For one thing, this is just like my people, right? Like, we're all speaking the same language. Everybody is an energy geek. Everybody has a real sense of optimism and hope about them. We're all just working and dedicating our lives to trying to make things better. So there's just a certain amount of personal recharging on that level that I get when I come here. And then, of course, there's the amazing base of technical knowledge that's here. I was just in an amazing session with Al Mitchell and Mark Rosenbaum. And, they're talking about thermal storage in buildings and talking about passive resiliency as well as active resiliency. Just getting into these details, things I've been thinking about, but don't, particularly like, say, when it comes to passive resiliency, but don't necessarily know how to solve. And so having these conversations with people like that, that are challenging and expansive, is just the best thing.
Well, thanks so much.
I just want to add, so I was impressed by the size of your firm. Can you just tell us how many people roughly you have on the consultancy side and the architecture side?
Sure. I'd have to do a count,
Roughly.
but roughly we're in our like low to mid 20s, so we're not a very large firm. I like to think that we certainly punch above our weight. We can have a big impact, particularly on the consulting side, because we get to really influence a lot more projects than we could if we were just solely designers. Part of what's really important about what we do is about making an impact, and so. I do spend most of my time personally in the architecture studio. I do consult on passive house projects. We also have other people in the office who consult on passive house projects. And for our consulting projects, they're national, even international. So we can consult just about anywhere. Our architecture projects tend to be more regional. But we're really happy to get involved with anyone who has sustainable goals that they want to achieve.
And clearly, Massachusetts has a climate that's pretty similar to Pennsylvania. So, but you mentioned international. So, do you consult on a variety of climate types?
Yeah, we do. I mean, even just nationally, we do. That was a big part of why Phius even started, right, was because we have such a diversity of climate types in this country. So our international projects, we don't have that many. I know we consulted on one in India, I believe. But we consult in all sorts of climates all over this country.
Great. It's a great, valuable expertise to have.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I'm particularly interested in these days is just future climate. And so we're seeing those climate maps change, actually. And, we're all going to have to be a lot more flexible and a lot more nimble about what climate we're designing for because it's rapidly changing.
Excellent point. Thanks so much.